So, lights, camera, action. So, on this week's show, we have from London all the way over to Brooklyn, DJ and music producer from the legendary Jam On Productions and Newcleus, who released incredible tracks in the early 80s like Wiki, 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 Jam On It. And we have the one and the only Cozmo D.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
How you doing, my man?
All right, how you feeling, man?
Yeah, listen, it's great that you've come forward to do this in this really difficult time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's really crazy, yeah. And it's, you know, a huge respect for you to do this. And before we kind of get started with the interview, I want to give a massive shout out to all the doctors, nurses and key workers out there basically battling this virus.
Absolutely. All over the world.
Cozmo, listen, man, it's an absolute honour for you to do this, and, you know, absolute legend in all them old tunes, absolutely fantastic. So we're going to kind of touch on the early years as well as, you know, up and coming new projects.
Cool.
So, you know, the first two questions I always ask is, you know, whereabouts are you from and what was it like growing up, you know, as a youngster?
I'm from Brooklyn. Born in Manhattan. Lived my first 2 years in Queens, but after that, it's all Brooklyn, baby.
Whereabouts in Brooklyn? Coney?
Well, I lived in a few parts of Brooklyn, but mostly I lived in Park Slope while my grandparents lived in Bed-Stuy. And I spent half the time with my mother in Park Slope and the other half in Bed-Stuy.
And when was you kind of growing up? Because I'm not very good with like age and things like that. Was you kind of growing up in the late 70s and early 80s as a kid?
No, I grew up in the 70s, 60s and 70s.
Wow. Well, you don't look that old.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And did you was there many kind of was there many kind of street gangs back then when you was growing up?
Oh, sure. There was plenty of street gangs. From the late 60s, early 70s, gangs like the Tomahawks and the Jolly Stompers and the Hellcats, into the later gangs in the later part of the 70s, like the Savage Skulls and the Crazy Homicides. No, we had plenty of street gangs.
Wow, yeah, because I spoke to Willie Estrada, who was a warlord in the Imperial Bachelors. Yeah, and Willie was giving me like the rundown on, you know, on kind of the gangs in New York back in, you know, the early 70s.
Yeah, that wasn't my scene though.
No. And what, you know, was there many kind of like block parties back then?
Oh yeah, we used to do block parties. We did block parties. We rocked in the parks. Block parties was the thing in Brooklyn, man.
Yeah, that must have been amazing. What and what are the park jams as well?
They still do them.
Yeah. They've never gone away.
No. They still do block parties.
And that must be where you
drag their speakers out.
And that must be where you basically, you know, you cut your, you know, where you basically sharpened up your skills as a DJ.
Yeah. When we started DJing, we first started in '76. More of the inside because we didn't have large speakers yet. You know, so we did house parties and stuff like that. But in '77, you know, around the time we really started embracing hip hop, you know, we started hitting the parks and started doing block parties, got larger speakers and all that. Yeah. And
it basically eventually got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Until it peaked in the summer of '79 when not peaked as far as speakers are concerned, but peaked as far as the jams out in the parks were concerned. In '79, that summer, every night there was a jam going on.
It must have been absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, I still pine for that time, man.
And who was a big influence on you back then? Would it have been like, you know, legends like Grandmaster Flowers?
Grandmaster Flowers was a legend to us. He even tried to recruit us at one time. you know, because he had gotten his equipment ripped off in '79. He started recruiting other DJ crews that he could get to work with him. But my main three DJ heroes was Count JC, who was out in Coney Island, Grandmaster Flowers, who was Brooklyn, who was citywide, and App Superhog with Electrified Sounds, who was the top DJ, you know, while we were doing it.
Wow, that must have been absolutely mind-blowing. What kind of music was playing? Was it kind of like, you know, 70s funk and disco?
Funk, disco, we played break beats and stuff too. Whatever moved the crowd, man. That was the main thing. You had to keep the crowd happy. If the crowd wasn't happy, you were having a bad time because they let you know it. So you had to keep the crowd happy, you know, and the crowd wanted to dance, you know, so, you know, it wasn't like, you know, it's been said, though I've been to parties in the Bronx and I did not see this, but it's been said, I guess especially with Cool Herc's parties, that the B-boys danced all night. That didn't happen in Brooklyn, because in Brooklyn you have 1,000 people in the park, and maybe 50 of them are dancers, you know, up rockers, b-boys, whatever, you know, and you're not going to shut down 950 people for 50, you know, because the 950 get upset with you. So, you know, what we would do, we play the stuff, you know, the funk, the disco, you know, the stuff that moved the crowd, and then, you know, we pick a half hour here or an hour there and play breaks for the dancers. Wow. You know, and that's how we did it in Brooklyn.
And tell me about, I mean, back in London, we had, you know, a big reggae culture where they'd have sound systems in the, you know, the 70s and the early 80s, like, and you'd have Saxon and Jar Shaka and these really big, you know, sound systems.
Yeah.
You know, your sound systems, were they also made like the reggae sound system? They'd be like handmade?
Yeah. Some of them were. Some weren't, you know, some were bought, some were handmade. Our first system was handmade by a guy who built reggae systems.
Wow.
And then we started and we built and added on to that. I still have the first speakers we made.
You still got them?
Yeah, I still have them.
Wow. Crazy. Have you plugged them in to like test them, what the sound's like?
Not in years.
No.
Not in years. Because when I moved to Pennsylvania, you know, we kept them stored and we would still do block parties, you know, while we were in Brooklyn. But I moved to Pennsylvania in 2008. Was it 2008? Yeah, it was 2008. I was about to say it. Getting old, man. You know? So they're stored in my basement here, but no, they haven't been on since then.
And you know, your music was, you know, it's very electronic. So, you know, who was influencing you on that electronic sound? Would it have been, you know, groups like Kraftwerk and Yellow and all those kind of early electronic style groups?
Kraftwerk was an influence, especially their sound. Not so much their music, though the Computer World album heavily influenced me on their music. Before that, I found Kraftwerk to be boring, but I loved their sound. But my main influence as far as electronic music was Giorgio Moroder.
Wow. Yeah.
Giorgio Moroder did it for me because his music was funky and it rocked the dance floor.
He was amazing.
And being a DJ, you know, he still is amazing.
Yeah,
being a DJ, you know, that was what inspired me. I also was heavily into Jean-Michel Jarre and Gary Newman. Yeah,
so those kind of that they really kind of influenced you back in the early years.
Yeah.
And how did you feel when, you know, what was the first thing? Did you buy yourself like a synthesizer or drum machine?
I bought a when it was 1979. I got my first real job. I mean, I had jobs before, but this was a steady job. One, you know, I was 20 years old. I was working in the mailroom at a law firm, and I would pass this store, Electro Harmonics, and it was they were a electric music gadget company that made stuff, a lot of stuff for guitarists, you know, different stomp boxes for guitarists that do different things. But they also made a little synthesizer and little drum machines. So there was the little synthesizer caught my eye, and one week I just went and took my check and blew it on the little synthesizer, and a little drum machine that I got from next door at Sam Ash called the Dr. Rhythm, and I took them both home and taking 2 cassette decks, recording tape to tape, and with myself and my girlfriend at the time, who would become my wife, Lady E, we made a song the first night. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what any of the keys were or anything like that, but I just sounded it out, and we did a song that night, Now, Before, and Evermore, and that was my start right there. If you talk about the first song that I made, that was it, Now, Before, and Evermore.
Wow.
If you talk about the first song that I produced that came out, that would be Wiki Wiki.
Wiki Wiki, yeah. Well, I want to talk about that because, you know, Wiki Wiki was big. Well, not big because there was an underground scene in London and in the UK. So it wasn't a huge scene, but, you know, hip hop and electro was growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But how did Newcleus form?
Well, Newcleus was myself, my wife, my first cousin, and her husband.
So very kind of family kind of.
Yeah, we all shared a floor in my mother's house. Me and Yvette were in the front, and Monique and Chili B were in the back. You know, and in the middle room was where we had the equipment for our studio. You know, well, what we was passing as a studio at the time. How it all started was first, you know, I'm making music myself, you know, with the synthesizer and doing the tape to tape. And if you go tape to tape, you know, from cassette to cassette, what you end up with in the end is one copy of a song that's like crap because it's got all the generations of noise from picking up from going cassette to cassette. So I realized what I needed was a multi-track recorder. And this is when the first Tascam Porter Studios came out. So I didn't have the money to buy one.
Well, they
so
big money.
Huh?
Well, they.
Oh yeah, it was big money for back then. How much was the Porter Studio? Was it like $1,000, something like that? You know, it's just a 4-track cassette. You know, but with a board, you know, a little baby board hooked up to it, you know, but it would change everything for me. So, you know, my cousin Monique, she had some money, and you know, I asked her if she would invest in, you know, in buying one for me, and then I could take my music to the next level instead of doing the tape to tape stuff. So she said, okay, cool. But if I do that, will you work with my boyfriend, Chili B? Now, Chili B grew up on the same block on Bainbridge Street that my grandparents did, where my grandparents lived. He lived a few doors down. Monique and Pete, those are my cousins, they lived with my grandparents. Their mother had passed when they were younger. So they lived with my grandparents. And they also were my first partners in starting Jam On Productions and starting the DJ business. So all of that was centered there on Bainbridge Street. Chili B was also a DJ, and he lived down the block, and he had his own equipment. But also, Chili B and I were in a band called Thunder Funk. He was the bass player, and I was the singer, and it was a funk rock kind of band that was built on the block also.
And
So
did you release any music through the band?
no. We just did block parties and stuff like that. We were just an amateur band, you know, trying to get started. But this is how he and I first got to know each other. You know, he was younger than I was, so it wasn't like we hung out, you know, but we were in this band together, and he was a good bass player. So that was in about 77 when we were in the band together. It was 81 when I asked Monique, oh no, it may have been 80, when I asked Monique if she would front me the money to get the Porter studio, and she asked me to work with Bob. Well, since I had already been in a band with Bob, that was fine with me. I said, yeah, sure. You know, he's a great bass player. He's cool peoples. You know, we can get stuff together. So we got the Porter studio, and Chili B, that was Bob's name, DJ name, Chili B, and we sat down together, and we did a song the first night called Until the Morning. And we realized, hey, we got something here. And that's how we started. It was me and him, and we got Lady Yvette and Monique, Nikki D. You know, at the time, none of us were married, but they were going to do the vocals, and Bob and I would do the music.
What a lovely story. I never realized that you was all kind of connected like that.
Well, yep. Well, our original name was Positive Messenger, you know, because our original mission at the time, we were all Christian, and we figured we would you know, do positive things with our music. We would either praise the Lord with our music, or we would talk about the shape of the world and how to change the world and things like that. And so we call ourselves, I wanted to call us Messenger, and Chili B said, well, why not call it, I said, because I want to do positive things. Chili B said, why not call ourselves Positive then? And I said, well, let's compromise and call ourselves Positive Messenger. And that's how we became Positive Messenger. And as Positive Messenger, we wrote, you know, I started writing songs about, you know, that talked about the condition of the world and spiritual things. So that was when I wrote Computer Age. That was when I wrote Automan. That was when I wrote Why. That was when I wrote Destination Earth, which has lyrics. You know, a lot of people only know it as an instrumental, but if you look out there, you'll find it has lyrics, and the lyrics are pretty profound. However, I did this one thing because, you know, we're still DJing as Jam On Productions, still doing park jams, still, you know, block parties, still doing parties and all that. And one of the DJs in our crew, Salvador Smooth, he said, yo, why don't you do a rap record? Now, we had tried, before I had hooked up with Chili B, I had tried putting together stuff tape to tape, trying to do rap records, but you know, nobody would give my tapes a listen, you know, because the quality was so bad, because it was before I got the Porter studio. So we had done rap records doing that. So, but most of the rap records that were out, we didn't like, because in Brooklyn, the way hip hop sounded in the streets was different from how it was sounded up in the Bronx. And most of the early rap stuff were doing the Bronx style with routines and stuff like that. Whereas in Brooklyn, it was more of a go for dolo, you know, a battle mentality. So he said, why don't you make a rap record? So, you know, this is what the Porter studio now I've got now. And I decided, okay, you want a rap record? I'm going to do one, but I made it an anti-rap record, you know, because I'm making fun of the rap records that are on the radio. So I did a John Wayne voice, and I made it with munchkins and all that. and I added this part with you guys are bad, but you can't do this. Wiki, 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 wiki. Because that had actually happened one time when we had blew out a crew in the 70s, and the guy had actually come up to me because, you know, we didn't, you know, most of us didn't scratch, and say, you guys are bad, but you can't do this. Wiki, 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 wiki. I said, man, we just blew your ass away. We ain't got a wiki, wiki, wiki. You know, so I threw that in the record. All right, so we would play this thing, we call it Jam On's Revenge. And I would play it whenever we did a block party or whenever we did a party and all that, I'd play it and people loved it.
Well, how did you play it? Did you have it pressed on vinyl?
No, I just had it on cassette, right. And we would play it at block parties and stuff like that.
Well, and everyone was going mad to it.
Oh yeah, the crowd loved it. The crowd always loved it. So when we had the Positive Messenger stuff and put it together, it was after I made Computer Age. And when I made Computer Age, Planet Rock hit. And I said, well, if Planet Rock is a hit, Computer Age is a hit. Because it's, you know, it doesn't sound the same, but it's got similar qualities. If they're ready for Planet Rock, they're definitely ready for Computer Age. So I was on my way up to Tommy Boy with Computer Age. And I figured, let me stop at this one cat. Because when I was shopping the old hip hop that I was trying to do, that was tape to tape, only one cat had listened to it and had given me some positive criticism. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go back to that cat. His name was Joe Webb. And I went over to him and I played him the tape with all the Positive Messenger stuff. And he liked it. He liked it all. He loved Computer Age. You know, he loved Why. He was liking the Positive Messenger stuff. But at the end of the tape, just to fill the space, I had put Jam On's Revenge. Let me tell you, Steve, when that sucker hit, he lost his mind. He said, that's it. That's a hit. That's a hit right there. That's it. I told him, yo, I only put it on there as a, you know, it was only meant to be a joke. You know, it's not what we were trying to do. I only put it up there to fill up space on the tape. So no, that's it. That's the hit. That's
the joint.
So I figured, you know, here it was, we were doing all these songs with a purpose, all this spiritual stuff, all this foreboding stuff, all, you know, telling the world about conditions. And our first record's going to be some wiki, wiki, wiki thing. Well, we can't call ourselves Positive Messenger then. So we decided that we would call ourselves Newcleus because we are the nucleus of three families. It was me and Monique, it was Chili B, and it was Lady E. So it was our three families coming together in a nucleus. And that's how we got the name Newcleus.
Wow.
See, I was answering that question for all this time. You see that?
Yeah. That's amazing history. Oh, because I've always wondered how you got that Newcleus name. And how did you get your name, Cozmo D?
All right. My first name was Dr. Freeze. That was my first name. And my best friend, who was also DJing, he stole it. So I said, okay, you can have it. So I used to do I used to draw comic books. And I had this comic character, Captain Cozmo, with the C-O-Z-M-O. And I always liked that character. It was my favorite character. And at the time, there was my favorite disco record was called Mondo Disco. And on the record, it was by El Coco. And the record, the hook would go, Mondo Disco. You know, so I loved that. So I took the Captain Cozmo, took the captain off and took the Cosmo and called myself Cosmo Disco. and that was my DJ name.
Cozmo Disco.
Cozmo Disco. You know, because everything was disco at the time. When hip hop hit Brooklyn hard in '77, everybody was using the name like Frankie D, Master B, you know, stuff like that. So I shortened it from Cozmo Disco to Cozmo D.
To give it that kind of hip hop
right,
to it.
Right. So I've been Cozmo D ever since '77.
Wow. Amazing. That's a great history. And you know, what did you do? Like, what kind of setup? Like the vocoder, using the vocoder in some of the tracks. How did you come up with the idea to use the vocoder?
Well, Electro Harmonics also made a vocoder. So my third purchase after the keyboard and the drum machine was a vocoder. So I had a vocoder very early on, you know, because, hey, man, you could buy a vocoder for $150. You can't beat that.
and it sounded absolutely incredible on the tracks. When I interviewed Man Parrish a couple of weeks back, and he was telling me he bought the vocoder from ELO, Electric Light Orchestra.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
wow.
he was telling me the story behind it. It was used as coding, like back in the war days.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, absolutely incredible history. And yeah, I mean, wiki. I mean, you know, when we first heard that in 1983, the thing is, we never called it hip hop. We was calling that music. We was calling it back in 1982 when we heard Planet Rock. And tracks like Scorpio and other electronic style tracks, we was calling it electro, not hip hop. So what was you call? Was you calling it hip hop?
No, wasn't calling it hip hop. Nothing was called hip hop yet. I was calling it funk. That's what I was calling it.
But in 82 though, what was you calling it in 82?
I was calling it funk.
Right.
Yeah. If you listen in Jam on Revenge, we mentioned funk a few times.
Yeah.
Unless you can handle the funk, that's what I was calling it. I was calling it funk.
We was calling it either electro or electro funk. And after, you know, like Jam on It, because Jam on It come out in 1984, and Jam on It was another, you know, incredible track.
Well, what happened after Jam on Revenge, the record company decided they wanted us to do a rap record, you know, and we told them, you know, I told them, I said, we're not rappers, you know, we're DJs. But they said, oh, no, we want a rap record. So I said, okay. So in the 70s, when we would rock in the parks, I used to get on the mic. You know, and you know, I used to, you know, rhyme on the mic. I had a book of rhymes and everything, and I'd say my rhymes, and I'd say the same rhymes every time, to the point that when I said my Superman rhyme, the whole crowd would say it with me, you know. But
can you remember the lyrics?
Of course I can remember the lyrics. So I had a whole book of rhymes that I used to use. So I said, okay, you want a rap record? Fine. So I went in the lab, put together a beat. You know, one of the funkiest bass lines that were out was "Situation" by Yazoo, and put my own bass line together. Took a beat and put that together, and voila. I had in about 45 minutes, I had a dope track. Then I got my rhyme book out, put my old rhymes together, and had Jam on It. Jam on It was born.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chili B was supposed to, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jam on It was an absolute incredible track. I mean, you know, it blew us away. I mean, everybody was like breaking to that.
Thank you. Chili B was supposed to write his own rhymes, but he couldn't come up with any. So I wrote new rhymes for him. So, and that became Jam on It. And I played it for Joe Webb, and Joe Webb told me he didn't like it. I told him he was crazy. I knew that was a hit. I didn't know it was going to be what it was, but I knew it was a hit.
So I mean, it was big. It was pretty big over in London and UK. I mean, we was all playing it as kids, you know, on the boombox. So was it a big hit out in America?
It was huge,
Mm.
huge.
Because I know, like,
Still rocks the dance floor, man.
Because I know Wiki that featured on Electro One, the Street Sounds, Morgan Khan's Street Sounds, Electro One, Wiki.
Right.
And that was kind of one of the first times, you know, I was picking up on Newcleus.
Right. Jam on It, I think, is on 3.
I think it is 3.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about Street Sounds back then, but no, Jam on It was huge. That summer, you know, we were on the Fresh Fest that summer, and all over the country, it killed.
Everyone was playing it on the boom boxes,
on the radio. People would tell me they were sick of it.
Played it too much.
Yep. Which is fine by me. Keep it going. I want you sicker still.
And what kind of happened after Jam on It? Because obviously, you know, you carried on production wise, didn't you?
Yeah, no, we Computer Age came out after Jam on It, and that did well. And then he had a couple more singles, Destination Earth, Automan, and then we did the second album. And the second album didn't do that great. It did better on the UK than in the States, but that is because the record company went under.
Crazy time. And you're still, you know, you're still doing a lot of production now as well, aren't you?
Oh, no, I still produce.
Yeah. So you're still producing and DJing as well?
Yeah, still producing. Don't DJ much anymore, but I mean, we do a weekly show on Global Funk Radio every Saturday, myself and my son. But I leave most of the DJing duties to my son now. Now I just play what I like. So I get on there and I play jazz. I don't care.
Yeah, you play whatever, you know, whatever floats.
I'm 60 now. I'm going to do what the hell I want. You know what I'm saying?
Quickly going back to the early years of the block parties. What decks was you using back then? Can you remember? A mixer?
Of course I can remember. 1500 MK2s, Techniques.
Mm. And how about the mixer? Was it one of them massive mixers?
No, we had Newmark. I don't remember the number though.
Mm.
No, it was a regular Newmark and all that. And you know, I never cared that much. The mixer's job was basic. You know, you need your turntable to your turntable's your workhorse, but your mixer's job is basic. You just want it to, you know, to give you the ones and twos. You know, so that's the main thing. You know, so Newmark was a good basic company for that.
And Cozmo, was you repping any other elements of hip hop? Was you dabbling in a bit of graph or you know, anything like that?
We did graffiti. Cause I still don't think that graph is really hip hop. You know, because I know a whole lot of graffiti writers that were not into hip hop. You know, so so how you gonna call it? But whatever. You know.
Yeah, I know.
It's not worth arguing over. People say, "Oh, it's an element." Okay, fine.
I think it was
we were writing. Our name of our crew was the Nasty Team, TMT. You know, so we were all citywide on the subways, mostly on the insides.
Mm. And I bet the trains back then were completely bombed out.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You couldn't. It was hard to find the space, and if you found the space, it wasn't going to be there long.
I think the first time that I'd see any trains which were bombed out, like graphed up, was in a film called The Warriors, which I think I see around 1980. I think it was. It was around
no, it's earlier than that.
It might have been 79.
Yeah, I think so.
But I saw, when I watched that back then, that's the first time I'd seen any trains graphed up, and I was like, wow, this you know, I would love to have been around back then.
It was a crazy time, man. It was a crazy time being on the subway and going through the Bronx, and it looks like you're going through a war zone because everything's burnt out. Oh man, it was a crazy time.
Yeah, no, I bet it was actually. I bet it was. I mean, things must have totally changed nowadays.
Oh yeah, no, it's with the gentrification, forget it, man.
It's a totally different world, isn't it?
It's nuts. It's nuts. You know.
Yeah, it's a totally different
what you
world.
gonna do? Yeah.
And Cosmo, can you quickly brief me on the fashion back then as well? You know, what was you busting? What garms was you rocking? Was you doing like the Lee jeans?
I've never been a fashion hound, man. You know, basic gabardines. You know, matter of fact, I didn't even wear sheepskin coats. I wore Quarterfield coat. You know, but you know, bucket hat. And you know, and then I went to the Derby, so wore the Derby, but that's just it. I've never been a fashion hound. It wasn't my thing, man.
I love the Derby style hat.
Thank you. Yep.
You know, in London, the reason why a black cab in London, why the roof is so high, is because back in the day that people
everybody did the bowlers.
Exactly. Yeah, you knew that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people could get in because they could wear their bowler hats so they didn't like take their hat off to get in the back of a black cab.
Right.
I can't believe you knew that.
I've been over there a few times, man. I've learned a few things.
You've been talking to the cabbies over in London, haven't you?
Yeah.
Kind of talk about, you know, what you're up to nowadays. I mean, you're kind of like in the house style of music now, aren't you? On the production wise.
Well, I do everything now, but for a while, you know, what happened after when the second album came out. Well, let me break it down for you. When Space is the Place came out, we were finally, Chili B and I were finally starting to learn the music business, and so we started going up to the record company and hanging out there, and you know. I was doing all right because I had written most of the stuff, so my checks were coming in. But we hadn't gotten any artist checks yet. You know, we hadn't been paid for anything. They kept Joe kept telling us we were in the red. So Adam Levy, who was Morris Levy, who owned the company, Morris Levy's son, I'm sitting, Chili B wasn't there. I'm sitting in Adam Levy's office. And I said to him, "Hey, Adam, when are we going to get out of the red?" And he said, "What do you mean in the red?" He said, "We just cut Joe a check for $250,000 a couple of weeks ago." That's when we realized we were getting ripped off. So we tried to work things out, but Joe, I guess, was spending the money. And we got a lawyer, and he said that, you know, you guys, you know, you may be under contract, but you can start producing. So Chili B and I started producing for ourselves. So the first stuff that we did was hip hop. You may have heard Greedy Girls by The Move. That was our first production on our own. And that's basically a Newcleus record with somebody else rapping on it. Mm. You know, and that came out, and we started putting different hip hop stuff out. You know, none of it great. You know, and until, if you heard of this group called PM Dawn, put their first record out. Yeah, so I produced their first record, but started getting into house music. You know, because we're DJs, and the DJs play what the people want. So
when did you start getting into house? What, around kind of 87, 88?
Yeah, around 87, 88. You nailed it. Yeah, so you know, because that's when it started really hitting the dance floor.
Started really popping off, didn't it?
Yeah. So we went right with it. So at first it was with Chili B, but Chili was distracted. And then he and Nikki D broke up. So, you know, I'm going to stick with my cousin. So Chili B and I stopped working together, you know, and that was temporary. And I started doing house music. So you may know Shalor, I'm in Love.
Mm.
Yeah, that was my first real big house record. And oh, you started drifting away there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm look. That's it. I'm back.
And then after that, we did I did an album called Africa. I know an album called Bang the Drums. The first hit was Africa, and that was by Push Pull. And then an album that still rocks dance floors called Dream to Science by Dream to Science, and it had a single on there, My Love Turns to Liquid. And so, you know, on the underground tip, you know, they consider me a deep house pioneer as well.
Wow,
You know,
so I didn't really know that. I'm gonna have to look a couple of them tunes up to re-listen, but I'll probably definitely know them when I hear them.
Oh, you know, you'll know them when you hear them because it's got the Newcleus, especially the late Newcleus stuff, because I use a lot of the same instruments on them, and it's still very electronic, but very deep, very house.
Wow.
All right. And unfortunately, in the 90s, I got into trying to produce different rap records and I was producing other people, and they were doing gangster rap. And I probably should never have tried to do that. You know, and that wasted a lot of my time. Wasted a few years doing that.
Was you more into the kind of the uplifting kind of music?
Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
that's what I'd always done, and that was what I was supposed to be doing. But right around 2004, started putting out the Newcleus stuff again, and the revival caught me up. In 1999, they reached Rhino Records reached out to me to put out a Best of Newcleus collection, and it was a revival. Electro revival was going on. You know, I discovered how much we were loved in the UK. That never imagined it before then. Never heard of electro before then. You know, and all of these things brought us back, and we started concentrating on Newcleus again. Started performing again. Got back with Chili B and Nikki D, and we started, you know, getting back. We recorded a couple of new tracks, and that's led us to here. Unfortunately, we lost Chili B in 2010, but we're here still rolling.
And you're still, you're still producing.
Yep.
Wow.
Right now, we're working on a new Newcleus album that we've actually been working on for quite some time, since 2005. I'm ashamed to say, and it's almost done. It would be done now.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Get your finger out.
It's gonna be the last one, so I want it to be right.
Yeah,
you know, yeah. Then we lost Chili B, and but it was all we got is a few vocals and stuff to finish, and had to fly Nikki because Nikki lives in North Carolina now. So had to fly Nikki up, but now we're in a pandemic.
Hey, yeah, what are some of like the biggest highlights from back then?
Biggest highlights from back then, Fresh Fest, definitely. That was the pinnacle. A major tour. I forget how many cities we were on. Must have been 30-something cities. It was incredible. An incredible time.
And also, you know, releasing your first track, was that a massive big highlight?
Oh, that was huge. Matter of fact, when I heard Wiki Wiki on the radio for the first time, I cried, man.
Well, that's when you kind of knew that, you know, you'd kind of, you know, people were listening to your music.
Yep, it knew something. I knew something had happened. You know, something. It reached the pinnacle. You know, to hear your stuff on the radio, that was amazing. That
must be mind blowing. I mean, did you ever walk into a club and suddenly like they're playing your tune on the club speaker?
Oh, many times.
Did that blow your mind?
It still does. Still does. What blows my mind every time is when we hit jam on it, when the first boom, 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 boom. When that drops and the crowd goes,
incredible.
That still sends chills up and down my spine, man.
Well, you'd be pleased to know that I bump Wiki 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 and jam on it in my London cab when I'm driving down the streets of London.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I always play all them old electro tracks. Absolutely love it. And very quickly, where can people support your music as well, Cozmo? Where can they hear about you and download your tracks?
You can find our stuff all over the world. Any streaming platform, any download platform, and wherever you find good music, YouTube, wherever you find good music, you'll find Newcleus stuff.
You're there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you're not going away.
No, sir. I'm gonna keep coming hard with it.
You know that. And Cozmo, is there like anybody you'd like to give like a shout out to as well?
Shout out to my boy Egyptian Lover, first and foremost.
He's incredible. Egyptian Lover's incredible.
He's incredible. He's incredibly good people. Work with him often.
I'm trying to get to do an interview with Egyptian Lover. I'd love to.
I'm sure you can get him to do it. Shout out to all the electro lovers out there, all the hip hop lovers, all the house lovers, all the funk lovers.
And obviously everyone that's bought your music and
yes, everybody that supported us over the years, everybody that has ever boogied down to jam on. We appreciate it.
And there's a hell of a lot of us as well.
Thank you, sir.
But Cozmo, listen, it's been an absolute honor talking to you. I mean, another incredible, interview. I'm blown away again with the history.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it, and I'm honored to be involved. I'm glad that you brought me in, and I'm really flattered, man. Thanks.
No, listen, Cozmo, I'll take my hat off to you. Absolute legend.
Thank you, sir.
All right, my man. Listen, more importantly, keep safe out there. And
yeah, you do the same, man.
And yeah, peace.
Power.